What up, everybody? Welcome to Monday morning. My name is Paul Abernathy. Welcome to Coffee Hour. Thanks for joining me today here as we get the week started off. And it is an amazing week that we're starting off with. Again, whether you're into politics or not, it's going to be an amazing day. So I'm excited for that. And yeah, just welcome to spend your day with me or your morning with me here on Coffee Hour. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about the second part. We'll be going over grounding electrode conductor installation. And of course, it's a topic that can be typically dry for many people. So if you have any questions on it, feel free. Now, I'll also have to pause in about 10 minutes in order to make another connection that I have to do. So again, bear with me. It's only going to be an issue. And so we're going to change the time for Coffee Hour on Mondays. So look for that in the future. But every other day it stays the same. Because of an engagement that I have to do on Mondays. So anyway, we have to overcome and adapt. But thanks again for joining me here on Coffee Hour from wherever platform you happen to be watching on or listening on. We appreciate you joining me here and taking part in these morning activities. All right, so today we're going to be talking about the connection to the grounding electrode conductors to where we have multiple separate enclosures. That's what the topic today is going to be. And of course, I'll entertain, again, any questions that are involved in that. First of all, like always, I want you to say where you're from and let me know whether you're a fast track student or not and what's your name and where you're from and all that kind of good stuff so we can share it on the screen. Paul, good morning. Thanks for joining me. Houston, 28 degrees, chilly, chilly. It's a little colder than that here. It's like 21 here, or 19. It's going down to 8 tonight. Not happy about that, but it is what it is. We got Red Dog. Good morning, Red. Out in California. TJI. Good morning, sir. Yep. Southern Alabama. There you go. Thanks for joining me today. And then we had a question right off the bat. Charlie didn't waste any time at all throwing a question out there. He says, good morning. Quick off the topic question. Can I paint a meter? That's something you need to check with your utility. I can't think of a reason why you can't unless it can hinder the opening of it, if it is a powder coated or something like that. But it's really outside of the scope of the NEC. You know, we all tell people all the time, you can do what you want to do. But I would check with utilities since chances are they own the meter. And so just see if they have any problem with it. But I've seen my share of painted meters. And again, as long as it doesn't affect its operation, doesn't break the seal, being able to get into it. Very rarely do you have to get into the meter, but I wouldn't see anything that would say you can't paint the meter. And I'll be honest with you, my house growing up, the meter was painted. I've seen tons of meters painted. It doesn't affect its operation. So in fact, it adds a protective coating on it, I would say. So I wouldn't see any issues with that. But definitely check with your local utility to see what they say, just to be sure. But again, it is just a meter. It's not service equipment. It's technically something that's controlled by the utility. We may install it as an electrician, but it's really their property per se. So check with them. Just a quick call is all you need. I wouldn't even call the municipality. It's none of their damn business. At this point, just if it's already been inspected, it's already in, I would just call the utility and say, hey, y'all got any problem with me putting a paint on this? They'll probably say, as long as you don't put it on the meter itself, and as long as it doesn't do anything that messes with the integrity of being able to get in and out of it, if they ever do need to get out of it, they might have to pull it from time to time. Other than that, I wouldn't have a problem with it. Let's see here. Good morning, Jonathan. Chilly, 22 up there. David, Florida. It's probably pretty decent in Florida. Probably not too awful cold in Florida. What's up, Eric? Thanks for joining me, Eric, on a Monday morning. Everybody's up early. Y'all know what day it is. What day is it? What day is it? I know I'm going to hate some people are going to click off for this, but you ready? What day is it? It's Trump Day. That's right. It's Trump Day. I know some of you don't like that, but I don't give a shit. How you going? Charlie, there you go. And Long Island, 19 degrees. Ooh, that's chilly. That is chilly willy. Okay, it's just like what we got here. Yep, Jonathan says, as long as it's no lead paint, well, that's pretty much synonymous now. We really don't use anything. We shouldn't be using anything with lead base. It should be like a latex or oil based or something like that. But yeah, shouldn't be no lead anywhere. I hope not. Red House, good morning. Arizona, Navajo Nation. Great to have you here. All right. I don't know why I'm pixeling out this morning already. I guess because I didn't open up my thing and check my settings. I don't care. We're going to let it roll today and just deal with it, whether I pixel out or not. Who cares? All right. All right. Hopefully you've got your coffee. I've got my coffee. These are one of our mugs that are available over on our website. If you care to show patronage over there, there you go. Got a Donut House blend today. That's what I'm going down with. And make sure I got the right glasses on today so I can see what the hell I'm doing. All right. Okay. So good morning. Frank's in the house. Good morning, Frank. Thanks for joining us again, as always. Alex, out of nothing. Good morning. 5 below in Wisconsin. Hold on. I got stuff for that. Hold on. Ain't no damn way I'm going anywhere that can get 5 below. I don't care. I ain't going nowhere near there. What's up, Wyoming? Manny? It's probably pretty chilly in Wyoming too, I would imagine. But thanks for joining me this morning. Okay. So prior to this, we have talked about the grounding electrode conductors. We've talked about in part 1, we talked about how to protect them against physical damage, when they're protected against physical damage, when they're like 8 and smaller, that type of thing. For grounding electrode conductors, we've done all that. It's no damn way, Manny. Are you serious? Minus 11? Dude, you got to move. I get it, but you got to move, bro. I feel for you. You got to get out of that place. How could anybody be doing any damn electrical work in minus 11 degrees? That is probably the most unproductive day on a job site that I ever had when I was contracting and I had my guys, is when it's cold, nobody wants to do nothing. Nobody wants to pull any. You can't pull any damn cable because then, unless you lay it, acclimate it. And y'all know you should be doing that, right? Anytime you're pulling cable and you're going to pull it in cold weather, it needs to sit above freezing for 24 hours prior to being used. Y'all know that. That's the protocol for most manufacturers. So that it doesn't crack, right? Nylon's going to crack at minus 4. Minus 10, you start seeing problems with PVC. Thermoset, you can get down lower than that. But again, for installations, all those type of things, nobody wants. And of course, I crack at minus 10 degrees. Dude, I couldn't do it. You're a better man than me, Manny. Stay in the bed, get warm, wait until the heat comes up. Take a cold day. It's okay. Tell whoever it is, tell them I gave you permission to take a cold day. Okay. All right. So anywho, welcome here again. I appreciate all of you. I always appreciate you. Hopefully you all know that. And it's these coffee hours are never about me. Be honest with you, anything I've ever done when I do education and training, it's never about me. It's about trying to put education out there, whether you agree, disagree, at least I'm putting it out there. And that's the goal, is to help you learn and that type of thing. Okay, and like you say, if people that don't understand that don't get it. For example, I was doing podcasts yesterday. I was doing an Instagram, and guess who calls me on the phone? Mike Holt. So again, we communicate, things like that. So again, he had a question about wire bending from a manufacturer's perspective, and he wanted my opinion on it, and I gave it. And I would most certainly do the same for him or anybody else, Ryan, any of us. So all of us, again, the myth that all of us don't get along, it's not so true. Educators are educators. We all have the same goal, and we want to teach people, and that's all we have. It's never about us. Nobody cares what Mike says or I say or whatever. It's what you feel, and we just help you get there. That's all. That's all it is. All right. Okay. Let's get to today's thing. Let's see if I'm sharing the right thing. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right thing here first before I go there. Okay, so what we're going to be looking at today is 250.64D1. We're going to be looking at D1, D2, and D3. Oh, D3 right here. Okay, briefly, just quickly, 30,000 foot view. Any questions you want to ask on them, feel free to ask. But we're going to be looking at those at a real high level view. Okay, So the first one we're looking at is the one where you have common grounding electrode conductors. So first, let's set the stage, what we're talking about. And I think I have an illustration that I can just kind of set the tone. It's this right here. So this right here, CT, right? And these conductors, and these are your two service disconnects, although this could apply to feeders as well. But what you have is, let me scroll down right here. This right here is the common grounding electrode conductor. This is a very common scheme that we have, where you have multiples up to 6 grouped at one location, each separate enclosure, and it drops down and hits what we call a common grounding electrode conductor right here. It's a common. And these little wires that come out of here, these conductors, they're considered taps. So they're grounding electrode conductor taps, okay? So sizing the common grounding electrode conductor, and I'm paraphrasing this from the NEC. So if you're following along in your NEC, oh, and by the way, I got to give a shout out to Joe. Joe, you know who you are. He did send me a copy of the index for the 2023. So whoop, whoop, whoop. Good news is, as we do exam prep Tuesday, I will have the index to be able to use to help people learn how to navigate and even use the index. So Joe, thank you so much for making that available. He must have watched a podcast and send it to me. Again, thank you, Joe. It's going to make it so much nicer for me to be able to show people how to maneuver in and out. So we're always trying, and that's what's so great about you that listen and follow, is that all of you listen and chime in and join in, and it just makes for a better community. That's for sure. So at any rate, all right, let's go on and get into this here. So this is what we're talking about. So I'm going to paraphrase. So the National Electrical Code in 250.64 D1 says, you know what? If you're going to size this common right here, this common grounding electrode conductor, and it's going to whatever electrode it is, to size it, it's based on the summation of the conductors that are on the supply side of the service disconnect, that are whatever feeding the disconnects, or on the supply side of the feeder. Okay, so this just happens to be a service, right? And this is an example of what it would be like for a feeder. Okay, same scenario. Notice that this might feed this one and this one feeds this one, but you take them collectively, okay, on the supply side. Whether this is a feeder or it happens to be here, happens to be a service, okay? Get that clear? Right there. So whatever's ahead, if I had 6 disconnects, you take if it's a parallel set, you just take one set, and that's it. So if this is a 250 and this is a 250, collectively be 500, okay? If this is a 600 kc mill and this is a 3/0, then you take the circular mills from the 3/0 and you add it to the 600 kc mill, 700 and plus circular mill, and then you go to table 250.66 and you size the common grounding electrode conductor, okay? All right, so that's the basis of the rule. So that's the basis of this rule, okay? So this one right here. So in this example right here, I'll just throw it out here. Let's say that this is a 200 amp disconnect and this is a 400 amp disconnect. This one's being fed by a 3/0 and this one's being fed by a 600 kc mill, okay? Because it's good for 380, all right? And so they're going to put it on a 400 amp overcurrent device, okay? So actually, I think a 600 is probably good for 420, I believe. So in this design, this is how they've done it. So here you've got a 400, it's got 600, and you got a 200, it's got 3/0. So that's what these two conductors are right here. Okay, one's a 600 and one's a 3/0. Okay, so what does the code say? Well, the code says in 250.64 D1, it takes the summations. If you don't believe me, we'll come back here, and here's what it says. Right here, it says the common grounding electrode conductor shall be sized in accordance with 250.66. You notice it doesn't say the table because it doesn't want you to go to the table. It wants you to go to 250.66. And then it says it's based on the sum of the circular mill of the largest ungrounded conductors, plural, of each set of conductors that supply the disconnecting means, plural, okay? So when we come back to the graphic, this is where you get your summation. And so you take the 600 plus the circular mill of the 3/0, and y'all know where to go to get that, right? Chapter 9, Table 8, that gives you the circular mills. And anything that's 4/0 and less, you're going to need to get the circular mills, okay? When it's 250 kc mill and larger, it's just basically a 250 kc mill is 250,000 circular mills. A 500 kc mill is 500,000 circular mills. You get me? All right, so we added the two together, and that's how we got 767,800 circular mills. Okay, so then, because we don't know what type of electrode it is, so don't ask those questions yet. We don't know what type of electrode it is. So if you're studying for an exam, you have no idea what the electrode is. So by default, we're now going to go to table 250.66, to that default. So we're going to come here. We're going to go to 250.66. We're going to go right here. And we're going to go, okay, it was 767. Well, so we know it was over 6, but it was not over 1100. So the common grounding electrode conductor is a 2-aught. All right, so this case, we come back to the illustration. This right here, this is a 2-aught. Right here. Okay. Now, pretty easy, right? Now, the next question that people ask me is they say, well, Paul, what if the what if you're using ground rods, pipes or plates, or U for ground, concrete encased electrode, or a ground ring? Then the question goes, do I do summation for that? And that's the reason, folks, and this is a key thing that I want people to realize and understand, that how the code works. Okay, it's a beautiful thing, to be honest with you, is if you come back here, that's the reason why it didn't send you to the table right here. Okay, because it sent me to 250.66. Why? Because in 250.66, I am able to use all of 250.66. Okay, and because of that, I can use A, B, and C as well. And so that tells me that in our situation of this graphic right here, that if this was ground rods, let's say, then this common would not have to be larger than what? A 6. These taps would not have to be larger than a 6, but you can see that we're going to size these taps, and these taps may be smaller than 6. Okay, they might even be an 8. But the point is, if I chose to use rods, pipe, or plates, then I get to ignore the summation portion of 250.64D1, and I can use A, B, or C. Why? Because the code tells me I can use it, right? Because it sends me to 250.66. Now, where in 250.66 does it say that? Right here. It says the size of the grounding electric conductor and bonding jumper for connection of grounding electrodes shall not be smaller than given in table 250.66, except, here's the important part, except as permitted in 250.66A, B, or C. And so that's how we get the permission. That is something that people struggle with all the time. They're like, show me where it says that I can use, that I don't have to, even if it's a common and you're using D1, they go, show me where it doesn't have to be larger than a 6. Why does the common only have to be a 6? Because of the rules in 250.66. If it wanted you to go straight to the table and use the summation in itself, then it would have said go to table, but it didn't. So that's the way the code is designed. It's designed to say, look, if we don't know what the electrode is, then you do a summation of the conductors that are ahead of the disconnects, and then you go to the table. On an exam, if they don't tell you the type of electrode, that's what you have to do, right? But in the real world where we get the cuts and the bruises and the sweat and the tears, in that world, if I'm using ground rods, then it doesn't have to be larger than a 6. Okay? So again, and we do an episode where we talk about all of 250.66 and explain the electrodes and the thing that used to consider where they say it's a sole electrode. It means it's not continuing on to other electrodes past the rods, for example, like going from a panel to the ground rods and then up to a water pipe ground. No, because that one up to a water pipe ground would be larger than the one that's allowed to go to the rod. So in that case, you could not use the allowance of 250.66 because you were carrying it on to another type of electrode that is larger than what you would be running to the ground rods. So that's what that means. But in our case, we're just going from the panel straight to the ground rods. Then I am okay to use 250.66A. Makes sense? If I got a concrete encased electrode, doesn't have to be larger than a 4. You know what I'm saying? Can it be smaller than that? Absolutely it can be. Why? Because this is a permitted statement right here. Okay, let me show you that again. right here, this is a permissive statement. Can I choose to not use these A, B, and C for ground rods, let's say? Absolutely. I could use a table. And if I happen to have, let's say, a 31012 where it's 100 amp service and the conductors are, say, only 2-gauge copper, then it says that my grounding electrode conductor only has to be an 8, even to ground rods. See, so you can use the table or you can use the allowances. It depends on what yields you the best result for you. Can I choose to make it 6 to ground rods all the time? Absolutely. Now, the only caveat to making this 8 is, y'all remember in part 1, it means that no matter what, physical damage or not, I'm going to have to protect it in a raceway, because 8 and smaller, it's got to be protected no matter what. Y'all remember that from the first episode that we did, okay? Important to remember that, all right? Okay, so let me get back to this tab here. So that's what we're talking about. So now let's talk about sizing these. Okay, how do we size these? All right, let's go back to the code, and let me get you back to and read the rest of this so we can follow. Hopefully you're following along in your code book. All right, so that's that part, okay? Now, let's go to the taps. The taps say, the grounding electrode conductor tap shall extend to the inside of each disconnecting means in enclosure. So that's why it comes from the taps up into each enclosure. It says the grounding electrode conductor taps shall be sized in accordance with, again, 250.66. It doesn't say the table. 250.66 for the largest service entrance conductor or feeder conductor serving the individual enclosures, okay? So in that scenario, we'll come back here to the illustration. So if this one's being fed by 3/0, then that's what you would use in table 250.66 to size this tap right here. Over here, if it's 600 kc mil, you would use that to size this tap right here. Now, as far as the connection, the code is very clear in the type of connection you can use to make this connection. And right here, I can use exothermic welding. I can use connectors listed as grounding and bonding equipment. Split bolts are just as simple because those taps do not have to be continuous, okay? Unlike that common grounding electrode conductor, which can't be broken, but if you're tapping onto it, those taps do not. They can tap right using a split bolt that's listed for grounding and bonding, okay? Or you can use exothermic weld, or you can even use where instead you come down with those taps and you hit a bus bar that is 1/4 of an inch thick by 2 inches wide. The length of it just depends on how many connections you got to make. I could do that as well. And those taps sized to that bar are based on the conductor that's supplying each one of those disconnects separately, right? Just like we just said. However, the main connection from there down to the electrode, that is going to be based on, just like we did, based on the summation if it doesn't give you an electrode, okay? So that you size the same as you normally would. And I have an illustration to show you that, just so you can see what that would look, just kind of an idea of what that looks like, just so you can see. Right here, see this? So this is what it's talking about. So these right here, these are still the taps. Okay, these right here, they will be sized based on the conductor that's supplying each disconnect. Whereas this common right here, that's still going to be based on the summation right here. Okay, that common. Now, if it's ground rods, okay, then again, it kind of means that nothing here really needs to be larger than a 6. So these taps could be smaller than a 6, okay? But it's a ground rod, okay? So that's the kind of scenario that we're dealing with, okay? Let's see here. Miles says, morning, Paul. Good morning, sir. Says, I passed my master's exam on the first attempt Friday. I couldn't have done it without your teaching and the fast track program. Dude, I am, hold on, where is that? There you go. All of you out there, collectively. It works, folks. It works, and it's nothing special. I tell people all the time, there's nothing special about our programs. What it does is that it systematically tries to train you. Everybody can teach code. There's tons of people that offer code courses, but our program tries to do it in a way that makes you read it, then you go to the code, go back, and everybody, be honest with you, it's not a secret. Everybody should design their prep programs just like that. That's exactly how they should design it, because that makes you go from the code, from the lesson, into the code, back into the lesson, back and forth, back and forth. You can't help but get better. It's just by osmosis, you'll get better. So again, congratulations, Miles. I know you're going to do great things, and never stop learning. And the fact of the matter is, you got your master's, And you're still here today. A lot of people get their license and they go, I'm done. I don't need anything else. Dude, you're here. You know why? Because you care and you want to continually learn. That says volumes about people right there. Okay. All right. So that's how we size that. Okay. So pretty straightforward, right? That's how we do. Let me get back here. So that's how we do D1. Pretty straightforward, right? Okay. Let's go on to D2. So here's D2. So D2 is pretty straightforward too, because what that is saying, you know what? I want to run individually, right? I want to run individually to each one of my electrodes. I don't want to do it in a tap format. Okay. I want to run separately to each one. Okay. Well, I've got an illustration. Obviously, that should be pretty no-brainer, but let's go on and share this illustration right here. So here we go. So here's the same scenario, but instead of having a common come up, this rule lets me run an individual grounding electrode conductor to each one. Now, we'll assume that this ground rod out here met 25 ohms or less. Paul tested it with a ground resistance meter, not an ohm meter, a ground resistance meter, folks. And it said, hey, 22 ohms, boom. Okay, I only had to put one in. So there you go. So that's a ground rod, okay? Now, these individuals are based on the size of the conductor that's supplying the enclosure, whether it's a feeder or whether it's a service. So whatever's supplying it. So not the summation. Here, since it's coming out of the enclosures, it's based on the size of the conductor that's supplying it. So in this case, in our example, this was 3/0 and this was 600 kc mil, let's say. Well, since this is ground rods, again, we could use the rules in 250.66a, and that says that it doesn't have to be larger than a 6. Okay. Do I need multiple ground rods? Okay, so this is one ground rod because I proved it was 25 ohms or less, but typically you'd put 2. Can I use the same set of ground rods for the multiple services? Absolutely. Electricity don't care. Lightning don't care. Surges don't care, right? Electrons don't care. Okay, they don't need their own electrodes. That's the electrodes that you establish for the structure. So use them. Okay. This one you notice it's got 2 separate clamps, obviously, because these clamps are listed for one conductor, okay? There you go. That's what I like to see. Miles says, look, CMECP is next, okay? That's what I'm talking about, and we will welcome you in the program, my friend. Ask Ron. Ron just went through it, and it's challenging, but very rewarding. Okay, and you can be the electrician in your area who markets himself, advertises himself, promotes himself as the only CMECP in the area until somebody else comes along, obviously. But you can promote it as you take your game to the next level. How you market it is the key. That's the key. Okay, and I talk about marketing in a podcast I just did, which is grassroots marketing. Dude, you want to make sure that you pat your own self on the back. Okay, people say that crap all the time to me. It's like, oh, Paul, you're full of yourself. It's like, no, you ain't got no crowd out there clapping for you. You have to promote yourself. You have to let other people know about the hard work. And if people say that that's conceited, they're full of shit. They are. They don't know what they're talking about. They're self-centered. They have a complex that they're hiding, because there is nothing wrong with telling people your achievement and being proud of what you've achieved. Okay. Why do you think doctors put MD behind their name? If you go to get a doctor and he's your doctor, you don't need to know it says MD, but people use their credentials. People use things to promote, because you know what? There's so many people out there today that wants to see you fail. You want to show everybody how you're a success. So I tell people all the time, if somebody says you're conceited, ignore them, because they're self-centered in themselves and they got problems they don't want to expose to the world. You let people know your achievement. Kid, the biggest fan that you have is you, because you're on this rock only one time. One time. If I'm going to achieve all these, hey, look, I got a couple people that clicked off because I offended them. Piss on you. You don't need to be here anyway, because we're not about that. We're about winners here. We're about achieving. Okay? That's what today is all about. Trump Day. Whether you hate him or not, you should all be rooting for him right now, because regardless of like or hate, he's in the office right now. And whatever he does, it makes us better. So you should be rooting for him regardless. That's what Americans are all about. I'm just saying. All right. Okay. Enough of that. I've already lost another viewer. That's fine. They all can go if they want. I don't care. All right. So there we go. So there's what we've got here. And so each one of these are sized individually. And you notice that it also in the code, by the way, I'll take you back here. You'll notice back here, right here, it says each grounding electrode conductor shall be sized in accordance with 250.66 based on the service entrance or feeder conductor supplying the individual disconnecting means. So you notice it doesn't send you to a table. Now, of course, you're going to use the table if you're doing a water pipe ground or in-ground steel or things like that, right? But if you're using a rod, pipe, or plate, you're using a UFR, or you're using a ground ring, then you most certainly can use 250.66 A, B, or C. Again, one of the biggest confusion areas people have of grounding electrodes when you have multiple disconnects. And I've just now cleared it up for you. It should never, ever be a question in your mind. And you heard it right here on Coffee Hour, okay? Ain't no other program out there like it. Other people do videos, but I can promise you, ain't nobody committed to doing a Monday through Friday show. Ain't nobody committed to doing the number of podcasts that I do, okay? It certainly can't be about the money because, I don't monetize most of the stuff I do. So, hey, you know what I'm saying. All right, the last one we'll talk about this morning is this one, common location. So what's a common location? All right, well, let's see if I can't bring you a picture of what a common location will look like, just so we have the context of what a common location. Oh, so let me see if I can find an illustration, because I had an illustration. I'm going to show it to you just because I wanted you to see a common location. So let me share this with you. Okay, so here's what we're talking about, a common location. So in this service right here, here's your service, here's your meter. It's coming down, hitting in a wireway, and then it's coming up and hitting your service disconnects, okay? We have a double here. So right here, it's using the grounded conductor to bond this enclosure, which you can do in 250.142. It's perfectly acceptable to do that, whether you like it or not. You can use the grounded conductor for that. And here, this is being made on the supply side of the service disconnectors, right here on the supply side. This is the common grounding electrode connection. So we go back to read what it says. It says on the common, oops, hold on, I think I jumped off of it. Hold on. Sorry about that, guys. Let me get back. Right here. So the common, it says a grounding electrode conductor shall be connected in a wireway. Hear me out. A wireway or other accessible enclosure. Could be the meter. Okay. Could be the CT. Okay. That's another accessible enclosure. On the supply side, key component, supply side of the disconnecting means to one, so I can do it even if it's only a one disconnect or more as followed. So typically what we see this is I would be in a wireway ahead of multiple disconnects, but I could be in a wireway ahead of a single. I could be in the actual CT. Again, some people say, oh, you can't go in the CT. No, the code says I can make that connection anywhere on the supply side of the service disconnect all the way up to the point of attachment. Again, it's going to be dependent on your jurisdiction, obviously. Okay. Somebody says, well, not in my city. Okay, whatever. I don't control every city, so I don't give a damn. I'm just telling you in general. It's on the supply side of that service, of that disconnecting means, and it can be connected to the grounded service conductors like we saw in our graphic, which is right here. This is being connected to the grounded conductor on the supply side. So that's an example. It can also be connected on the equipment grounding conductor installed with the feeder. Okay, so if I had to show you a graphic of that, this is what it would be like right here. So let me show you this one. So this is what it's talking about for that one right here. So this is a feeder coming in, right? Because you see the equipment grounds coming in. And here it is on ahead of these disconnects at the equipment ground that's coming in. And here you see, boom, that's going down to whatever the electrode may be right here. Okay, so that is your other allowance there. Okay, or it could be connected to a supply side bonding jumper. Okay, if that's the case. So you could have a supply side bonding jumper with a lay-in lug that's on the supply side, then it could be connected to a supply side bonding jumper, which is actually going back and connected to the grounded conductor anyway. So many ways to do this. Now, the connection shall be made by what? Exothermic welding or a connector listed as grounding and bonding equipment. Okay. The grounding electrode conductor shall be sized in accordance with, again, 250.66, doesn't say the table, based on the service entrance or feeder conductors at the common location where this connection is made, right? So in our case, it's making it back at that common connection, okay? Let's see here. I'll show you that graphic again so you can see where that common connection is. So I'll share this right here. So it's being made back here, okay? So this one obviously is being sized based on this conductor right here. Not both of them, just one of them, one of the legs, one of the phases, there, right there, okay? And if it had been parallel sets, then it would be the summation of the parallel sets. And that's how you would size this, okay? Again, if it's ground rods, then you don't do anything but choose what? A 6. And that type of thing. So pretty straightforward, I think. Let's see here. What has Adam got to say this morning? Welcome, Adam. Good morning, sir. It's time to use the brain. Absolutely. Winning. Constantly keep winning. With the master, a legend. I don't know about all that. Got pints of coffee. Dude, there's my boy. Yes, sir. It's a glorious day. Okay. Not just because we're gloating, folks, out there who's pissed off. We're not gloating. This is a chance. This is a chance for America to move forward, to get prosperous again, bring everything back here. It doesn't matter whether you're a leftist or rightist or whatever. You know what I'm saying? The reality is we should all now be working together to we all live here. If you don't like it, the movie stars that say they don't like it, you can move. God, the freedom is you can go back and forth across that border if you want. Better do it now because it's a free border until about a couple hours from now, then we're going to close it down. All right, there you go. So let's see here. Yeah, Adam's telling my company about me here in about Portland, Oregon. Okay, thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody that shares about our courses, about our programs, about our podcasts. Hopefully, you've got our free mobile app. It's awesome. There you go. So Al's going to drop a sub. Appreciate it, Al. Appreciate you joining me. Okay. Let me get back here. So there you go. So that was pretty straightforward. I mean, look, it wasn't complicated to be able to show you all the options on where you can actually get your grounding electroconductor and how you can get to those electrodes. Now, in part 1, we covered the different rules for it and the sizing and aluminum with terminations with the 18 inches of the earth. And we covered all. So make sure you go watch part 1 if you haven't watched it. Part 2, we just show you how to get that GEC down to the electrodes where you have multiple disconnects and you got multiple options, okay? So the last thing that I will talk about is en route, okay? So en route to get to those electrodes, one of the things I want to talk about is when you're installing those electrodes, and I want to talk about let's see here. I want to talk about this one here, E. And I want to end on this one for today. We're talking about putting grounding electroconductors in raceways, inside of cable armor. Okay, we already talked about how we do it. Now we're talking about when we're installing it, are we putting it in raceways, cable armor, enclosures, which means if it passes through a wireway, it's in an enclosure that the grounding electroconductor runs through. So we've got some general rules that we need to be aware of, okay? And we want to make sure that we cover those general rules, okay? So let's see here if we can, see if I can go back to get to where I've got some, let's see if I can get back to where I can got some lessons for you. Bear with me. Okay, yeah, okay, I'm back here. All right. Oops, jumping around on me. Okay, so we're going to talk about these lessons really quick because we've got a few minutes left here. Unless y'all have questions, feel free. It says, now, if I'm going to be putting my grounding electroconductor, which I'm going to tell you right now, I recommend you put it in Schedule 80 PVC, save you a lot of headache, a lot of grief. But if you do, it says if you install it in ferrous metal raceways, anything with iron in it is going to be a ferrous metal raceway. So if it's a ferrous metal raceway, enclosures, or the cable armor, all of which are ferrous metal, if they're ferrous metal, steel, EMT typically would be a ferrous metal, unless you're using an aluminum EMT, and few are going to be doing that. So any of these for a grounding electroconductor shall be electrically continuous from the point of attachment to the cabinet or equipment to the grounding electrode and shall be securely fastened to the ground clamp or fitting. Okay. It says ferrous metal raceways, enclosures, and cable armor shall be bonded at each end of the raceway or enclosure to the grounding electrode or grounding electroconductor to create an electrically parallel path. Okay. Obviously, non-ferrous metal raceways, enclosures, and cable armor shall not be required to be electrically continuous. That should be a no-brainer. But what are we talking about? So let's take you over here and show you this illustration, okay? So here, right here, we have the enclosure. This is your grounding electrode conductor running all the way through. And we're just showing, this is in our program, we're just showing you a summation here, an example of all, and I'm see if I can get it in here good, all of the requirements, okay? So in this situation right here, this end of the actual raceway right here, people say, well, wait a minute, aren't you supposed to connect this? It says connect this grounding electrode conductor at both ends. It is by virtue of right here, because this connection here connects through this jumper right here over to this enclosure, and it's no matter whether the connection was made here through a lay-in lug or made here, it's all connected together at this end. Now, this is interesting because at the code panel hearings, they were voting on this, and Ryan Jackson submitted something to try to clarify this up. And the code panel totally went over their head until we went out for a break, and I went out on the break and I said, guys, are y'all saying that you wanted them to do a lay-in? And actually, it's on the record where I asked during the hearing. I said, are y'all saying that that literally means that I have to take this grounding electrode conductor and take it through a lay-in lug in order to connect this side of the raceway to this grounding electrode conductor? And they were like, yes. And I'm like, are you sure you know what you're talking about? And I did it right in front of the open meeting. So we went out to the break because I was like, well, okay, whatever. They didn't understand what Ryan was asking. So we went out to the break and I said, and I showed them this illustration. And I said, guys, whether the connection to this GEC is done right here or done right here, if you use a proper connection here and this is all valid and you make this connection, then it doesn't matter whether you connect it to the GEC right here or right here, it's all connected together on this end of the GEC. That's all the rules said, right? Okay, so then when you get down to this other end here, you see this end is connected right here because it said do it at either end, at both ends. So it's right here, it's done, okay? And then this side down here, since this enclosure here is bonded, here you see the jumper to here. So because of this connection, it's connected to this metal enclosure. This is all connected together, so the GEC is connected on this end. And then when you get down to the other end of this raceway, here you see this end is connected on one end by virtue of this here. Doesn't have to be a lay-in lug right here. It's all still intimate together. Use some common sense. And then when you get to this end, it says this end right here. It's connected together right here at this end, okay? All right? And this right here is not a ferrous raceway. So this right here is a non-ferrous. But we also, and so here you have the raceways is going through, and here you just see the connection here and the connected on the end. I would argue that this is the other end of the electrode that's connected at the clamp. They're just using this mechanism to make the connection, okay? And this is a lay-in lug right here, okay? But you're following the rules everywhere that you need to with the ferrous metal raceway. This connection right here is just the point where it says at the end, the GEC to the electrode have to be connected together, okay? So that's that being connection right there, okay? So anyway, my point here is that be careful what you run, but understand your connections and don't let people confuse you of the connection. This is really the same connection, whether I did a lay-in lug right here or I ran it up to here and this is connected to the enclosure by this connection here. All is connected together. Okay, this right here is the main bonding jumper, connects everything together. It is connected on that end of the GEC. I don't need a lay-in lug right here. Okay, makes sense? Okay, so anyway, we go back to the code. It's telling me to do all that, okay? And the methods that we can do it is the bonding shall be in accordance with 250.92b. And again, this is where we get the different lists of what we can use. If we don't have concentric, eccentric, oversized knockouts, okay, then we have other different allowances here. We have bonding bushing type of lock nuts, all these types. We have threaded entries. We have connectors made up wrench tight using threaded couplings, okay? So we have some allowances here that we don't have to be so strict on it. Now, sizing, that bonding jumper for the grounding electrode conductor, raceways and enclosures, or cable armor shall be the same size, or it could be larger, same size or larger, the largest enclosed grounding electrode conductor. So whatever the grounding electrode conductor size is, those bonding jumpers sized equivalent to that. Okay, makes sense? And then wiring methods. If a wiring method is used to protect the grounding electrode conductor, the installation shall comply with the requirements of the applicable Raceway articles. So again, you still have rules that you have to follow for those raceways where you secure them and all this kind of stuff. So you still have to follow the rules for the raceway. You're not getting away from it. Okay. So if I'm using a raceway, they have their own rules to follow it. Now we have some commentary here that you can see right there. Now this one right here, if this was an impairment, for example, and you'd have something like that, then you can have a jumper on it. Okay. So there's many different ways you can do this. And this one just happens to show, here's the raceway coming down, right? And running over right here. So this is another good example. So this conductor, you notice that this conductor, which is the one, let's say, again, I don't like the graphic because this one shows green and this is bare, but it shows it going up and connecting to the bus, right? And then it's showing a blow up right here of a jumper, okay? So you wouldn't need that jumper if this was a connection that was in compliance with 250.92b right here. No KOs, no concentric eccentrics. You use bonding bushings, bonding lock nuts, all those type of things. You did all that, then boom, it would still be connected. So you look, if you want to put a lay in and you want to lay it through, you go for it if that's what you want to do. But there are many ways to make that connection. Okay, there's not just one way to do it. Let's see, what do we got here? All Day Jack says, what if a ground rod installation site is later installed? Well, we can't control what somebody does after the fact, and I'm not going to try to be an expector. I'm not going to try to guess. If they did, well, so if they come along later and change something, then the person that's making the chain has to bring it up to code. And that's what most jurisdictions will say. Because, again, if they come and add, now chances are them adding a water pipe electrode is probably rare. Because that means that's rare. Because again, remember what qualifies as a water pipe electrode? Got to be 10 foot in contact with the earth continuously. And typically you're going to change the metal water pipes out for plastic. Okay. It's very rare that they come back and will put a water pipe electrode in. And then remember, this has nothing to do with bonding and the bonding of the water pipe as it's in the building. This is talking electrodes. So there's a high probability that installation will never happen. But if somebody comes and they alter the grounding electrode system, if they're altering it, then they're putting in a new service or doing something, then they will need to bring that up to code. Okay, because now it's going to be inspected. And as an inspector, I'm going to be looking for that grounding electrode system. Okay, and so that type of thing. So again, the code's kind of, that's why we pull new permits when we pull new work, so that new stuff gets to be inspected again. Okay, but every jurisdiction may look at that differently. But that's my thoughts on that. Let's see there. Will there be a class Wednesday, sir? We do not do Wednesday nights anymore. We stopped doing Wednesday nights 3-4 months ago. We don't do Wednesday night sessions anymore. Inside of our Fast Tracks program, if you're a student, you're in our enhanced or our basic program, we have what's called Fast Tracks Interact. You get to ask questions in the program anytime, and we randomly go through and answer them. But we don't do live on Wednesday nights anymore. I mean, we do this on Monday now, but we don't do Wednesday nights. We haven't done Wednesday nights for many months. So you can read about that if you're interested. I'll show you. Maybe you may not be interested. This has been posted on our website for many, many months now. I'll send you over there real quick just so you can look. So this is our website. But up here on the top, you'll see there's a Fast Tracks Live button right here. You click it, and I don't want to change the screen, but you'll see that it gives a little message about the Fast Tracks Interact. It is Fast Tracks replaced. So this has been many months ago, and this shows you, there's a little video that shows you where to get to that and how you can interact with that and post your questions, okay? But yeah, we got rid of that Wednesday night a long time ago. So, all right. Well, folks, that's it. That's pretty much it. I'll cut you out early, and rather than take you all the way to 1 hour, because we know it's a special day out there, very special day for folks. So check it out and make sure you enjoy the day. For those that enjoy the day, and everybody that wants to be optimistic, the future is upon us, and let's make it great for everybody. Okay. So anyway, take care, folks. I'm going to cut you out early today because I'm excited about what's happening and taking place today. I'm a big supporter. So we're going to cut you out early. We had 10 minutes to spare. Hey, this is my gift to you on Monday. I'm letting you out of class early. All right. Tomorrow, what are we doing tomorrow? Tuesday exam prep. We're going to bring some questions and dissect some code and bring your code books. And we're going to have a cool Tuesday. So join me tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Take care, folks. God bless.